Today we're going over the 3 hardest parts of growing your business to $1 million and beyond. This is the perfect video for you if you have aspirations of growing your company to something more than just a one-man band or few person operation, and grow this to something that has more size, more people. This is the perfect video for you. And so we're gonna dig right into these 3 things that, from the experience of doing it several times, I've really realized that these things are the things that just ultimately hold you back and can cause so much frustration because you just don't know what you don't know. Now, number 1, hiring people that are non-billable people. So I operate in a service industry. As we send out, as you're doing work in the field, you're billing for your time, right? You did an estimate and now you're trying to recoup on that estimate by hitting the hours and get everything to where you make a profit. And what gets really hard is you may grow some team members and be able to send them out and send everybody out to go out and basically hunt down those dollars. But what is really scary when you don't know what you don't know is hiring people that aren't billable. So this means placing people in the office, getting admin, getting other salespeople, getting people that for the most part you have no idea what you're getting into, because most people that start any kind of business, if it's a service business, products, whatever, you get in, typically service business, I guess probably all of them though, you typically get in because you know something about that industry. So I have a landscape company, I got in, I used to landscape, I'm like, hey, I could do this, I know about this, I'm gonna go into this. A lot of people go in with I'm a really good landscaper, so I'm gonna have a really good business. I'm a really good body man, I'm a really good carpenter, so I'm gonna have a really good business. Having a good business and being really good at a service are 2 wildly different things. It's kind of where the whole E-Myth, the book philosophy, comes in from Michael Gerber, where he talks about like a technician's seizure, I think he calls it, where, you know, one day at work you're like, I'm fed up with this and I'm done. I'm gonna go start my own business and I can do this because I can do this service. And so those are the parts you understand, right? You understand the service, you understand how to do it. But when you start hiring people, it becomes a whole nother thing. And when I mean hiring people, not the people doing the service, the people helping manage that, the people helping run the admin of that, the people helping develop and build the company from an office standpoint. And so a little tidbit that I didn't even think of when I first started kind of getting my thoughts together on this are, if you ever work somewhere and you are constantly thinking, say you're in a body shop and you're working on cars, you're cleaning cars, or you're in a landscape company, you're out in the field mowing lawns, or you're in any service, a mechanic shop, a carpentry, some kind of construction company. If you're out in the field doing the work that bills all those hours, that creates all that revenue, if you constantly have feelings of, oh, that office, they don't understand, they don't get it, they have no idea what it's like, and you're constantly spinning this story in your mind about how they are somewhat less than because they don't know a certain part, that could be an indicator that you really need to work on this, because it's gonna make it really hard to hire office people when you had that thought process, because you weren't really valuing them. Not that you didn't know what you didn't know, right? This isn't a dig at anybody, but when you're a service person, you're really skilled. It's very easy to be like, man, the office, like, I know they do stuff that's required, but it's like, I'm the one that actually, without me, there would be nothing. And the true part is without both halves, there would be nothing. So know that if you fought that sum and you're planning to grow to $1 million and beyond, you're gonna have to hire non-billable people to help this organization, or you're going to just run yourself into the ground. And when you do that, you're gonna have to start hiring these people that potentially you did not understand how they functioned before, and back into you don't know what you don't know. So hiring non-billable people, extremely hard when you're not used to having to hire those people, and you're not used to having to get someone that, like, I can't just equate they work an hour and they get to bill an hour and then it all financially in your head makes sense. You're gonna have to start making sense of things that don't make sense to you. Next, this is huge, having the right pricing. This can devastate a lot of businesses. And then there's also some just resilience in here anyway that you're gonna have to do if you're gonna push through some of these numbers. But having the right pricing, a lot of companies start off, they get going, and I'm just gonna use my industry, lawn and landscape, for a perfect example. You get going and you're working a job and you think that, hey, so-and-so's company charges $50 an hour. Well, I get paid 20, 22. I would do great if I made 30 bucks an hour. Man, I'd be great. I'd be cheaper than them, I'd get all the work, but I would be making way more than I make now, and that would be an awesome gig for me. That's where the huge fatal error is made right there. I'll be doing great for me. And that person is not taking into account a lot of the prices, a lot of the things that go into this, all this different cost, right? So it's not just now getting your pay, it's paying for the fuel, it's paying for the equipment, it's paying for the insurance, it's paying for any of the overhead, it's paying for anything that makes this happen. And a lot of times what happens is people don't start trying to emulate what they want to become always soon. Like a lot of times we don't even think about it. We just, hey, I want to become $1 million business, I want to become $10 million business, I want to build something, I want to be $500,000, whatever, just from a purely revenue, which is not the ultimate metric, right? Like profit is the real metric, but this conversation's about revenue. You want to be this thing, but you don't look at what it costs to be this thing or what it takes to run this thing. And so you price the way that's got you started. And a lot of times what gets you here won't get you there. So you need to now, very soon in the journey from starting to where you're going, you need to evaluate things really with price and say, okay, I ran it here and picked up some work, but what are our expenses going to be like there? And as quickly as possible, you need to start operating and billing like the company that is doing the things you want to do. Otherwise, it could crush you. You are going to run into a time where you start getting to that phase where you can, with very few people, do a couple 100,000, you do it with almost no one, right? And you can do a fair amount. You can do 300,000-400,000, still not have that many people. Once you start breaking into 500,000 and you know you're pushing, so now we're stretching out, trying to go from 5 to 8 to 9 to 10, which is $1 million. There's like a hole there. You're hiring the people that you can't bill for. You're trying to understand how this all works, and you got to try to jam through this so you can get to the other side where there's cash flow. You don't want to stay buried in that hole where the cash flow is just non-desirable. You're already taking all these things that burn extra cash, so you want to really just keep it to pushing through that fast and have a plan to get through there as quick as possible. But even more importantly, be charging the right amount before you even get started so you have more of that capital to use, and then insulating and protecting yourself with other means of liquidity. So no matter what, you can still keep your foot on the pedal to push through that spot. And now finally, the third thing that is one of the hardest about growing a company, and I say of any size, I mean, obviously any size could be anything. I think of like $1 million mark as like a starting mark, right? You get there, you thought it was a gob of money, you thought it was a huge company, and then you get there and you're like, man, dude, people do 50 million, people do 100 million. It's infinite. That's the best part about business, is you can just do and create whatever you want, and you can push and try as long as you want. And it's like this infinite challenge, which is really, really cool. But the third hardest part about pushing into that challenge is just building a team in general. It's not just the office, which I mentioned first, but building a team of people that work together. I've heard Jim Rohn compare it to herding cats, right? Pain in the ass to do. Beautiful thing when you figure it out. It's such a challenge. Your job will effectively go from being in the field because you started the business, to working out of the field because you're starting to try to work a little more on the business, to probably selling a lot of stuff because you're trying to scale the business. I mean, you're going to sell the stuff all the way from the beginning, but eventually you're going to shift. If you want to grow, you want to shift into being that salesperson for the business as fast as possible, given that you're a good salesperson. Eventually it develops into like a people developer and a culture facilitator. You're this person that's constantly wanting to make sure this is right. These people are working together well. This team is meshing. Because it doesn't take much, and it's really, really hard. Holding people accountable is hard. Holding yourself accountable can be really, really hard. Being an owner and knowing that, like, if there's a problem in the business, it really, ultimately, it's my fault. If it's a people problem, well, I hired them. If it's a structure problem, well, I hired the people that put the structure in place, or I originally did the architectural work of that, which now is crumbling because the thing has grown. And so it's already hard enough that, like, no matter what, it's your fault because you built it, you started it, you hired the people. It's even harder sometimes to go and then hold team members accountable, and not in the wrong way where you see employers yelling and screaming, but just the correct, hey, we need to move this in a different direction. What we're doing is not right here. Because it's always so much fun to say the nice things. It's very, very hard to hold people accountable and tell them what we need to change, what we need to do better, what we need to just adjust a little bit. That team takes all of those things. That team also takes people coming on the team, so constantly hiring, and people moving off the team because they're just not a good fit. And a lot of times you'll do a disservice to the person and you'll do a disservice to the company by keeping somebody who's not a good fit. They could have a job somewhere else where they could fit in and they could do well. Instead, you were keeping them here. They don't know what else to do, and now they're just wandering around in this position, kind of squandering the opportunity. They could have so much potential somewhere else. And so you hurt both sides when you think, oh, I'm just trying to be nice, I'm going to let this go. So it's a challenge. And when someone gets into a company, even worse, and they're a cancer, that can spread through your company, and it can take a cultural shift in the company, and it can make things start to go backwards as well. I've fought through all kinds of cultural shifts, all kinds of people being frustrated, all kinds of anger, all kinds of feelings, all kinds of emotions, because we had to make a lot of calls that weren't fun, and that's the name of the game. And by not fun, I don't mean like mean. It's just, if we have to let somebody go, that's never fun. If you have to hold somebody accountable, that's never fun. If you have to hold yourself accountable, that's never fun. But maximum transparency and a ton of accountability is what's going to get you there. So these are the 3 things that stuck out the most to me when I kind of jotted this down on the board. Leave in the comments if you have a business that's growing, what are the 3 things that have been the hardest for you to get this thing to scale? And if this helped you some, share this with somebody else who could help. Make sure you like and you subscribe, and I'll see you soon.